Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the DC Capstone Report. It is great to be back talking about game week, the first official game for Alabama football versus the Florida State Seminoles there in Tallahassee, getting ready to kick off this Saturday at 2:30. Well, coming at you just a little bit later this week than normal. I've been on vacation and just wanted to tell you that's why haven't been back with the podcast for the last week or so. Been on vacation. I went on a great vacation to Alaska. Had a wonderful time, and appreciate Lance holding down the fort here while I was gone. Put up some great content on freelancepictures.com and rolltidebama.com so we can get back till I can get back and start talking about Alabama football. Before I start talking, though, I want to mention I did mention I went to Alaska and had a great time on an Alaska cruise, and I'm one of the first people that I met in the airport getting ready to go out to the cruise ship was a person that had an Alabama hat on, and I could tell that they were Alabama fans wearing Alabama hats. So I said Roll Tide, they said Roll Tide, and come to find out there was a couple from Alaska. Jerry and his wife were from Alaska. He had gotten to know Alabama football from getting to know Bear Bryant, meeting Bear Bryant. He fell in love and loved an Alabama football fan ever since. And so it's great to see that we've got Alabama travels well, and we've got fans all over the United States, including Alaska. But what was so important was we got talking about our podcast, and I believe that he's our newest subscriber, follower to our podcast. So Jerry in Alaska, a shout out to you. Thank you for being interested in the DC Capstone Report and listening to our podcast each and every week. As always, I hope all of you, including Jerry, will share this podcast with your friends, your Alabama friends. It's definitely a unique perspective on Alabama football coming from the DC Capstone Report. Jerry not only was a great supporter and a great friend on the cruise, but on a Carnival cruise, you get an opportunity to support a great charity, and that was one of the things I saw about Jerry was that he was very looking at the things he was doing on the ship and seeing him, he was very interested in supporting that charity of the Children's Hospital there at St. Jude's. And so it's a really good job of what Jerry did. He purchased some bears to give away to the first 10 kids that were there on the cruise ship. And I just really love seeing the charitable nature that we have. All Alabama fans all around the world, that everyone I've met. But just a big shout out for Jerry for meeting him. I hope he is an avid listener to the DC Capstone Report, and just thank you for what you did for those children supporting the great cause there at St. Jude's Hospital. Well, let's get on with our review of the podcast today. In our first segment, we're going to talk about the review of fall camp. We're going to hit some subjects of what's happened and what we can look forward to. In our second segment, we're going to look at the Alabama offense versus Florida State. In our third and final segment, we're going to look at the Alabama defense against Florida State. Also want to thank Lance Shores for doing all the stuff that he does in the studio, making this possible each and every week for us to put up this podcast. And I want to thank our sponsors, his sites, freelancepictures.com and rolltidebama.com. You won't find any better Alabama football content during this season than on rolltidebama.com and freelancepictures.com. Lance is going to have some great things, great information, and some great pictures up there for everyone to see. And I want to thank, as always, our sponsor again this year, Karen Cottingham Realtor, right here in Tuscaloosa with the Williams Group at Keller Williams. For all your real estate needs, reach out and talk to Karen. You can reach her at 205-887-4008. We'll be right back with our first segment on the review of fall camp. Well, welcome back to the DC Capstone Report. This is DC with our first actual game review. Before we get started on the Florida State game, I want to talk about some of the key things that I think as we look back at fall camp and see what I think that were some things that are important that all of our listeners should know about. I believe number one is this team is going to be a different team than we saw on the field last year. Kalen DeBoer has done a great job from everything that I've seen and everything that I've heard from the sources that I have of building a culture that is going to make this team different from last year's team. I think the culture change was significant. We saw it early on after spring practice when no one got into the transfer portal. And I think it was significant also to hear each and every person on the team, coaches, players, any other personnel was allowed to speak to the media, hear them talk about culture and how this team is different than last year's team. One of the things I thought was missing from last year's team was a culture that we could draw on when tough times, when we were down, when we got down in some games, weren't able to come back. weren't able to fight our way back, and I think some of the losses were due to that. And I believe there was some friction on last year's team that will not exist on this year's team because of that culture. Look for each and every player on the team to be in one accord this year. No friction among the players. Everybody working toward the common goal to make sure that Alabama wins and upholds the standards of Alabama. One of the things I've been really excited to hear is players on the team speaking out, players on the team holding other players accountable, number one. And number two, the other players on the team that were being held accountable, not getting into their feelings, not getting into their emotions, but listening to that accountability and making a difference the next practice. That has been the most, in my estimation, the most different about this team is it's able to learn, able to listen, able to take criticism, individuals are, and able to keep that cohesive nature. So I think this culture of the team is much different. I think that's the most important thing that came out of fall camp. Number two is we named a quarterback. Early in fall camp, we named a quarterback. Ty Simpson is the starting quarterback. Austin Mack and Keelan Russell will give him relief when needed, but it's Ty Simpson's team. And I think Ty's waited a long time. He has an opportunity to make a difference in this team. I think he's one of the players that's vocal and holding others accountable. And I think the players really appreciate the way he passes the ball, the way he puts it on the money, and the way he can listen and communicate well with his receivers. One thing I've heard is the receivers are so excited about having him throwing the ball because when they come back to the huddle, they communicate well with him about their situations, where they want the ball, where they need the ball, how he can throw them open. So I'm really excited about that and look forward to him leading this team. The third thing I think that we discovered in fall camp is the Ryan Grubb effect. The Ryan Grubb effect is real. He has come in with an offense that I think is going to make Alabama better this year. And I think that the one thing I've noticed is he has had an opportunity to overall manage the offense, which has given Nick Sheridan an opportunity to be in the quarterback room working with Ty Simpson and Austin Mack and Keelan Russell. And this has been really, really good. I think we're going to see a difference in the quarterback position this year over last year. It's been a step up based on that Ryan Grubb effect. I think that Ryan Grubb effect is that he's made our defense better. There's been he in the practices and in the scrimmages has thrown some things at our defense that they'll see down the road in multiple other games. So I really believe that he has helped them. As we all know, iron sharpens iron. I believe that he has helped our defensive coaches and our defensive players make a difference on their side of the ball while also affecting the offense as well. So I think the Ryan Grubb effect is real, and we're going to see a big benefit from that this year. And fourth and finally, for the review of fall camp, the negative is I believe we had some injuries that's going to impact our team this year. Number one, Jam Miller, our starting running back, going down with what I understand is a collarbone injury, having to have some surgical repair. Not sure if he'll be back in the first three games, maybe possibly by Georgia. But that's definitely going to affect us in our first three games, especially this game going on the road against Florida State. And I'll talk more about that when we review the offense in the second segment. But Jam Miller's injury was definitely a surprise. It was definitely something that we weren't looking forward to. The second injury, I think, that's come out of small fall camp that we've heard a lot talked about, we didn't realize it was as serious, that's Jaden Roberts, starting right guard. Jaden Roberts is a massive player on the offensive line, able to really impose his will on the other team and push people around. And I think that what we've seen is that he's had a setback with a concussion. He's not going to be ready for the Florida State game. So that injury, I think, is a little hurtful. How we're going to get that line together, and we'll talk about that in the second segment as well. And finally, the last injury that we know about, Tim Keenan, ended up having tweaked his ankle seriously enough to have the tightrope surgery, and he's going to be out for sure this first game against Florida State and maybe a couple of games. Maybe he'll be back ready for that game against Georgia as well. But Tim Keenan was an anchor not only on the defensive line and defense, but also an anchor of this team as a captain and as a vocal leader. His vocal leadership has really held this team together. So I look to see what we'll do to replace him going forward. But some of the injuries, nonetheless, have going to make a difference. And I think coming out of fall camp, the first game is where we're going to get to see it. And we'll talk about that in our next segment as we talk about Florida State. Well, welcome back to the DC Capstone Report. Here we are in the second segment. We're going to take a look at the offense, Alabama's offense versus Florida State this Saturday there in Tallahassee. Alabama goes on the road. We have a winning streak, I think, of 22 games, of opening games that we've not lost, won 22 straight. And I look forward to Alabama having an opportunity to win a 23rd straight here against Florida State. And to do that, we're going to have to put an offense on the field that makes a difference. I think, first of all, Ryan Grubb, we've heard he's going to be up in the booth calling the plays. I think that's great. I think Nick Sheridan being on the sideline helping the quarterbacks is going to be a really good opportunity with communication. So I think our communication will be much better this year. As far as getting the information to the field, I think Coach DeBoer talked about that a little bit in his press conference. Having that as also the use of the iPads and the pads on the sideline as well, I think will help our communication. So when offense has the ball, look for how is Ryan Grubb going to utilize the dominant players on the team, and that starts with the quarterback. How is he going to use Ty Simpson? And I think Ty Simpson will have an opportunity to get started by leaning on the running game. Now, we heard earlier that Jam Miller is injured. He won't be playing. So that leaves it to a running back, I would think, by committee. I think you're going to have Richard Young probably going to get the start. Richard Young has got all the skill set that he could want in a running back. I think, if anything, the blocking ability for protecting the quarterback is something that he's had to work on. I think he's done a good job of doing that. I think you're going to see him a lot at running back, and I also think you're going to see Daniel Hill. Daniel Hill had an opportunity last year to play some as a freshman. And I think he has improved. I think, again, his running is good, but I think his blocking ability has been a little suspect. I think he'll have an opportunity to prove on that. Then we might see the transfer, Draylon Washington, who's transferred in. I didn't know we'd get to him much this year, but didn't realize about the Jam Miller injury, so we hadn't talked about him much. But I think his first game, we're going to look at Richard Young, Daniel Hill, and Draylon Washington. If anything happens to one of them, then I think the A.K. Deer, the true freshman, might get an opportunity to get some playing time as well. But I think we're going to see us run the ball to set up the pass. And then I think Ty Simpson's going to have an opportunity to affect the plays with his passing. I look for Josh Wavis to be a integral part of this offense. Him being the tight end that's got the most experience, and him and Danny Lewis Jr. together will be a very big influence on the offense, both blocking and in the pass catching ability. So look for Ty Simpson to be able to look to his tight ends. I believe Jam Miller would have been a good safety valve for him. I don't think Richard Young and Daniel Hill has got as much experience in catching the ball as Jam Miller had. So look for Josh Wavis to get some of those catches. But then you go on the outside, and Ty Simpson has a wealth of experience and a wealth of players in the wide receiver room that take effect that can make a difference for him. I think Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, and Isaiah Horton will get the start. I think each one of them will play well. Ty Simpson will have an opportunity to get it to his playmakers early on and often, and I think Ryan Grubb will do just that. Behind those three, you got Lotzer Brooks, a freshman, Rico Scott, a up-and-comer, and Cole Adams, who was injured last year, along with Jalen Hale and Derek Meadows and Jalen Mbakwe. All those in that wide receiver room might get touches. You might see them get touches, but look for them to lean hard on Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, and Isaiah Horton. Those three on the field at the same time. Ty Simpson has just a arsenal of experienced players and athletes to be able to get the ball to. So I think our offense will go by that way. We'll run the ball by committee. Ty Simpson will also give us some plays by extending plays with his legs. You know, everybody talks about him as a passer, but he also can run the ball fairly well. And I look for him to extend the ball when he has time. But I look for him to stay in the pocket. And I think for him to be able to do that because of our offensive line's improvement. Yes, Jaden Roberts being gone is going to affect us, but we're lucky to have Gino Vandermark, what coaches call the Swiss Army knife, to be able to slide over and play that right guard position, with left guard being held down by Cam Dewberry, the transfer in from Texas A&M. So look for Wilcom Formby to be at the right tackle and Caden Proctor to start at left tackle. Of course, Parker Brailsford, the All-American center, starting at center positions. I think with that type of offensive line, and Florida State's had to piecemeal put together a defense with a new defensive coordinator and a lot of transfers. I think the experience of this offensive line throughout camp, with Geno Vandermark playing that right guard position due to Jaden Roberts' early concussion, I think we're going to be okay on the offensive line, have an opportunity to give Ty Simpson some time to throw the ball, and I look for us to really do well on the offensive side of the ball. Well, welcome back to our third and final segment. Again, I want to thank Lance Shores for all he does for Lance's sites, RollTideBama.com, FreelancePictures.com, and then also our sponsor, Karen Cottingham Realtor, right here in Tuscaloosa. For all your real estate needs, contact her at 205-887-4008. Well, on the third and final segment, we're going to talk about Alabama's defense against Florida State. Well, in order to play defense, you got to be going up against offense. Florida State comes off a overhaul of their offensive picture. We got Gus Malzahn coming in. We're all familiar with Gus Malzahn's play calling ability and his ability to use the quarterback. I think last year it seemed that Alabama was susceptible to quarterback runs. We saw the quarterback at Oklahoma and Vanderbilt in games that we lost take advantage of that. And I think that he is going to test Alabama's defense, first of all, with the quarterback run. I think it's going to be frequent. The quarterback himself has had a big mouth of talking. There's been a lot of talk. He's going to have to try to do that on the field. I believe a lot of pressure will be on him to do that. So I look for him to run the ball and try to make plays with his legs as well as throwing the ball. But I think that could bode well for Alabama because I believe we changed this year on our defensive front. I look forward to seeing our defensive front match up against this quarterback run style that Gus Malzahn likes to do. The reason I like that is prior to Tim Keenan's injury, I thought we were the most solid up front on the defensive line. I believe in this game we won't be as solid as we would have been because I think Tim Keenan is the anchor to stopping that run up the middle. But don't sleep on Jeremiah Beaman. Jeremiah Beaman has put on some weight since he's came to the University of Alabama. I think he's over 300 pounds now, can really fill that Tim Keenan role on defense. He's a Birmingham prospect just like Tim Keenan. So I look for him to come in and really fill the hole there for Tim Keenan. Behind him, you got Kelby Collins. I think he can also give you some time on that defensive line. So we're going to miss Tim Keenan, of course, but I think that Jeremiah Beaman, watch for him. He's one to watch on offense, on defense, number 92. Be able to stop and control that line of scrimmage. If we can control the line of scrimmage with him, right beside them, you got L.T. Overton and James Smith. Each one of them are really good at playing the run and the pass. And of course, on the outside, you got Quay Russaw on one side, and you've got opportunities to allow him to come in and make some plays on crushing the quarterback. Behind him, you got Yanzi Pierre, and behind L.T. Overton, you got Jamarian Latham and Keon Keeley. You know, Jamarian Latham's got a lot of experience. You can see him slide in there as well to help out with that defensive line. So I think the defensive line is going to be okay. I think it'll be different without not having Tim Keenan start, but I think we're going to be able to do it. The solid part of the strength of our defense is going to come in our middle linebackers and our secondary. You know, I think we got a middle linebacking core that can go up against anybody with Deontay Lawson heading up and Justin Jefferson right behind him, and then you got Nakai Hill-Green, the transfer in. All those three could play ball and do a good job. Then behind them, you got Caden Jones and Quentin Reese, Abdullah Sanders. All those young guys have opportunity to come in if needed, but we're really strong in that middle linebacker position. So I look for us to be able to stop the run, stop that quarterback run using those. And then when we force him to throw the ball, we have a defensive backfield that, in my opinion, is second to none. I look for Xavier Brown and Damani Jackson out on the corners to play so well. I think you got Deshaun Jones, you got Bray Hubbard. I believe with them and Keon Sabb. I think you got just such a great opportunity to see some wonderful things done by that backfield, by the defensive backfield. And let's don't forget the freshman Dejon Lee. We've heard a lot of things about him. And you got Red Morgan. He has some experience coming back, and got Xavier Mincy. He has some experience coming back. So I think our defensive backfield is solid, and it's got a good opportunity to use them against this quarterback. So I look for us to stop the quarterback run, put him in pressure situations, get pressure on the quarterback, he's going to be so overhyped, so wanting to cash that check that he wrote about how good he was going to do, that I believe he's going to be susceptible to some mistakes. So I believe we're going to run a defense that'll put pressure on the quarterback and have him make mistakes. I'm predicting at least 2 interceptions in this ball game, and I think that one of those interceptions might even be turned into points. We put him in a bad position for him to not keep the ball safe and out of the harm's way. I think look for their quarterback to turn the ball over, and our defensive backs play so well to get these interceptions. So overall, I think Alabama is going to look good on defense this year. I think our coaching staff has done a good job of getting them ready and getting prepared. It's all about going on the field and executing. So that's the next question. On the field, executing against Florida State, at Florida State, with a lot to prove, the first game of the year. It's a chance for Alabama to come out and lay an egg. I know that. Everyone's thinking about that. No one expects Alabama to do well. But if you're an Alabama fan and you know what this team has done culture-wise to maintain this Bama standard, I don't look for that to happen. I look for Alabama to go on the road, be tested, but I think that Alabama comes out in the end with a huge victory over Florida State. I got Alabama winning this game, Alabama 38, Florida State 17. Well, thank you all for listening to the DC Capstone Report. I appreciate all of our listeners, all of our followers, all of those who subscribe to our channels. You can check us out on Facebook. You can watch our videos on YouTube. We're on Spotify. Wherever you can, send this out to your friends, your Alabama fans. Have them have a copy of this podcast so they can continue to watch and follow us. But until next time, this is DC with the DC Capstone Report signing off with a big Roll Tide.